The Royal Navy's Air Force, more than 150 combat aircraft able to operate in any environment, day or night, from land or sea. A multi-role force of fast jets and helicopters. Always ready to support the Royal Navy wherever it's needed, this is the Fleet Air Arm. Having just completed a successful exercise off the east coast, the destroyer HMS Southampton is returning to home base at Portsmouth. Unfortunately, 24 hours earlier, the Lynx helicopter sustained some damage and was unable to be flown back to its base.
Unfortunately, one of our engines has been fodded. It's picked up some damage, and unfortunately we've now been grounded. So we're now in the last 24-hour period of our exercise on the way back to Portsmouth, and now we'll have to now crane the aircraft off and load it back to Yeovilton so it can be fixed back there.
Once back at the Yeovilton Air Base, it soon becomes clear that damage to the aircraft is more serious than first thought.
We found foreign object damage in the initial first stage of the fan. On further inspection, there was damage further back, which means that the engine needs to be removed. When we remove engines, they get returned to Rolls-Royce and we receive a serviceable one back to be installed. That was our intentions. Today we found a damaged main rotor gearbox. Again, it's not a job that you can do repairs on. The main rotor gearbox needs to be changed, given back to Westlands. Hopefully 72 hours it should be serviceable again, depending on spares.
Making sense of Yeovilton's busy airfield is the job of air traffic control. With both fixed-wing planes and helicopters to deal with, the team are responsible for more than 100,000 aircraft movements per year.
Basically, Yeovilton is probably the most complex military aerodrome in Europe. It's considered one of the busiest, and when we talk about busiest, we don't necessarily mean number of aircraft movements, it's the complexity of what we do here. Yeovilton is unique in so much that instead of just having the majority of one aircraft type that you find at many military bases around the UK, we actually have up to 12 different aircraft types operating out of Yeovilton. And if that doesn't make things exciting enough, we actually mix frontline squadrons with training squadrons. An example of that is the Harrier training, where the first time a pilot sits in a Harrier, although he's done quite a bit of flying before he gets here, the first time he sits in a Harrier actually is here at Yeovilton. At the same time, he can be in the same circuit you see behind you as a frontline Harrier pilot who's got many hours under his belt doing his particular type of training. And of course that places greater demands on the team because you've got to mix this complex requirements and ensure that each gets what they want out of the day. It actually makes this a very, very interesting place to work and challenging. And I defy anyone to come here and not enjoy the job.
Yeovilton is also home to the Lynx Training Squadron.
So welcome to 702 Squadron, welcome to the Lynx world for...
Two of the students on this course are already qualified helicopter pilots.
For those experienced pilots amongst you, particularly Al and Max, this will be a simple conversion, particularly for Max, who's a fully qualified Lynx pilot already, from a French way of flying to a British way of flying, and I don't envisage too many differences there, Max. I stand to be corrected. For Al, it's a Sea King to Lynx conversion, so it's a big bus to a sports car, and I'm sure you'll thoroughly enjoy your time flying the Jules around. And for young Martin,
for some,
you,
with their basic training over, the hard work now begins.
Classroom to now sitting in the front of a vibrating beast, putting a helmet on for the first time, and a rubber bag. So for you, there's an environmental change as well as a helicopter change, but we're here.
Right from the start of their training, it's vital the students attend classroom lectures.
In your own time. What I'm trying to say is, a screw is basically a simple item, but this item, this blade here, is probably more than £5,000. And you take into account... It's important the aircrew, the flyers, appreciate and understand engineering concept. We're talking about a lot of money. I want to train people not necessarily to work on Lynx aircraft, but to be engineers. So if they leave the Lynx world, they can go on Apache, they can go on Sea King as engineers And that concentration of vibration will invariably induce stress, fracture, and cracks within the system. When you look at the oil tank
Ultimately, it
itself,
becomes
remember the oil
in our
tank
own
is
interest
very
to pay great attention both to the lessons that we have within the course itself as they're set up, and also before flights and after flights to condition the aircraft to ensure that it's safe for us to fly.
If you come up here and you examine this item, don't just look at it, because
I've got a degree in history, so my understanding of engineering is probably as limited as you get.
So get involved. And
As with any sort of machinery, it needs to be maintained, and we need to have an understanding of what needs to be maintained and at what intervals. That's the importance, the oils, the systems, what's actually going to keep me flying for a 2-hour, 3-hour period, get me down safely, and I can top up with later.
If you have a look underneath,
Not go into the sort of the depths of an engine, because that doesn't concern me when I'm flying. There's nothing I can do about it.
That's the harpoon.
I need to know what can stop me falling out the air.
Now that allows you
Gus
to
has already done
operate
3 years
up to
basic flying training.
which is when you've got white horses.
A couple of days after joining 702 Squadron, he's ready for his first flight in a Lynx.
Timings are for a 1-hour sortie. Crew, yourself as aircraft captain and myself as second pilot. The Met conditions for today: the nil warnings in force, surface winds 330 at 5 knots, 2,000 foot wind 030 at 10 knots.
What the student's doing here is a walk round of the aircraft prior to getting airborne. He's got to check all of the panels around the aircraft, make sure that the aircraft is fully serviceable and that he's happy to get in the air with this. Here he's checking the gearbox oil levels, and he's also checking the rotor head for make sure that there's no bits missing. As you can see, it's quite a busy environment and very noisy, so occasionally bits get missed. The part that he's checking now is the tail rotor, and this is the important part. This will be checked over 4 or 5 times by both the engineers and the aircrew prior to getting airborne. The final panel check now complete, the aircraft's ready to go. All that's required now is to start the aircraft and go down to Merrifield. See you later.
Gus heads off from Yeovilton for the nearby training airfield as Scotty keeps a close watch on his progress.
It's a short transit from Yeovilton to Merrifield. It's normally quite busy. Students working hard to fly the aircraft both accurately and also looking out to navigate the aircraft, I suppose. Okay. If you were going to a remote airfield, there was no one there to tell you the wind, what can you use?
I've got the smoke up ahead of my 11 o'clock.
Nothing too taxing for Gus on his first short flight in this dual control aircraft.
Gives you the local wind, not just what the actual wind is. Most birds, when they take off and land, always land into wind. The aircraft doesn't always have to do that. Sometimes we can't make an approach into wind. This is one of the ways that we can approach quickly, low level, and then turn the aircraft into wind prior to landing on.
Birds at 4 o'clock tend to come on the back of Hilton.
Gus understands what's required for this landing and makes a perfectly good approach under Scotty's guidance.
Clear running landing 3-4 pressure.
Hold the motor just before we fall out the sky, bit of left pedal.
Landings don't always go smoothly, even for experienced pilots, and should things go wrong, it's good to know help's only a couple of minutes away.
What we've got is a mock-up of a helicopter that we can set various different scenarios to, and we've basically engulfed it in flames so that the guys respond and use the equipment as they would do in the event of an aircraft major crash on the airfield. If the aircraft was engulfed in flames, we're going to have 2 simulated pilots in the aircraft as well, which they'll have to do a rescue on when we get there. What you're seeing now is a vehicle drawing up to a fairly safe distance so the